Hey, what is going down, you awesome and magically delicious camera geeks? You know, I didn't want to go back to this, but today's camera is so cool, it warrants the shades back on. And when you see it, I think you'll agree with me. Now, let's face it though, every episode is actually better with the shades on, right? Anyway, today's camera, if you've been following me on Instagram or Facebook, you know I've been talking a lot about the Leica M9 or the Light Lens Lab 8 Element or the Fuji class, etc., etc. Well, today's camera is not anything that I've talked about before. Today's camera, I guess I would say that most of you guys probably didn't see this coming, but the main reason that I'm doing this is because I am a year behind, okay? That's how bad it's become, and I'm gonna apologize to you guys at the end of this episode. But today, let's cut to the chase. Today's magical camera comes from 2013, and at the time of its introduction, it was perhaps the smallest full-frame digital camera that you can get. And does it still rock in today's world? We're gonna find out. But today's camera, so the camera we're talking about today is none other than the Sony RX1. And just for your knowledge, this is the RX1R, the R version. Okay, and you may be wondering why is there two different versions of the same camera? Alright, so let me just explain that to you guys a little bit. Alright, so first of all, the RX1 was introduced by Sony in 2012, and then the RX1R was released shortly thereafter in 2013. Alright, so the only difference between the RX1 and the RX1R is that the RX1 has the anti-aliasing filter and the RX1R does not. And back in those days, if you guys remember, manufacturers were still having a hard time trying to differentiate whether or not they should release with or without the AA filter, the anti-aliasing filter. If you guys will remember, we had cameras like the Nikon D800 and then the D800E without the AA filter. So this was in that time frame, and somewhere along the line, I would say between 2015 and 2017, the manufacturers decided, most of them anyway, decided to do away with the AA filter altogether, because they realized that most people would prefer the sharpness, the extra added sharpness, over the slim chance of getting the moire or other artifacts. Okay. Anyway, so this is the RX1R, which is the one without the anti-aliasing filter. So this to me is almost like a modern day Contax. Right, so have you guys take a closer look at this camera. Anyway, okay, one of Sony's finest lenses. So alright, so I'm going to show you guys some photos from this lens, from this camera. You guys know the deal. You'll hear some lo-fi hip-hop music, and then I'll come back and tell you guys just a little bit more about the Sony RX1R, RX1, tell you guys whether or not I think it's worth it in 2024 and beyond. But here are some photos from the Sony RX1R. Alright, you awesome war-torn geeks. Let's take a look at some photos from the Sony RX1R. Now I just want to say that I've used a lot of camera legends over the years, and I have to admit that there were many that I struggled to see what the fuss was all about. But this camera, I have to say that straight off the bat, I noticed that there is something special about this lens. This lens has the ability to take everyday scenes and turn them into cinematic experiences. The night shots out of this camera are absolutely amazing too. And considering that this camera is 12 years old, I would say that the capabilities of this camera and the versatility are absolutely amazing, and the images are top-notch, sharp, clear. The details and resolution are there, and the bokeh on this lens is gorgeous. This is a stunning optic. This lens is technically excellent and yet is full of character. A unique combination indeed. The 24 megapixel Sony sensor in this camera may be old, but it is absolutely one of the finest sensors that Sony has ever put into a camera. Now, how does the Sony RX1R stack up against a modern masterpiece like the Fuji X100V? Well, first off, just by taking a look at these two cameras, I think most of you will agree that there is no doubt that the Fuji X100 is the sexier of the two cameras, alright, especially with the optional grip that I put on it and accessories. But if you look at the two cameras, you can see that even though the Fuji X100V is an APS-C sensor, even without the accessories on, it would still be much larger than the Sony RX1R. But the design and the styling of the Fuji X100V, and actually the whole X100 series, is, in my opinion, just more visually appealing. The proportions just look better, whereas the Sony RX1R, the lens just seemed a little too big for that small body. So even though the Sony RX1 series does have its cult following, it's just never become quite as big as the Fuji X100 series. Maybe because Sony did not continue making them, and in my opinion, because of the styling too. The X100 series has that rare combination of styling and substance and marketing, whereas the Sony really just has the substance, in my opinion. Now, in terms of image quality, I have nothing bad to say about the Fuji X100V. It takes absolutely superb images. That said, I'm going to tell you guys something that may surprise some of you guys, but I have come to a point where I have to get rid of one of these cameras, and I have decided to get rid of the Fuji X100V because at the end of the day, I prefer the images from the Sony RX1R. That and the fact that I do need the money, otherwise I would keep them both. So I have to break my own rule about not selling a camera that I love simply because I live in reality, and YouTube just doesn't pay me enough to be able to keep both of these cameras. So if you do like this kind of content, if you can appreciate this content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to this channel so we can continue to grow this channel and bring you the greatest camera legends of all time. I thank you in advance, and I appreciate your support. Alright, so one issue that everybody talks about when it comes to the RX1 series of cameras is this right here, is the battery life. Everybody says it has poor battery life, but check this out. It uses the same battery as the RX100, which is a much smaller camera, so I don't know where the wisdom in that design came from. But to be fair, okay, this is something that I was actually surprised at. When I took it on my trip, I only had to charge this camera up once in the whole month that I was there. Now keep in mind that I'm not shooting like 100 shots a day, but I was actually quite impressed with the battery life, simply because everybody says how bad it is. So I don't know if it's because the battery is a good battery in here, or if they did something different with the R. I don't think so, but just keep in mind that I think if you have a good battery, the battery life may not be as bad as people say, unless you're shooting hundreds of shots a day. Then I would imagine that it would wear out, but I didn't have that problem, so I can't really say. But you can see, being that the battery is small, that could be a problem. Okay, another issue is here. Now check this out. This camera totally would benefit from the EVF, and Sony does sell an EVF for this camera. which I believe goes for around $250 to $300 on the used market. So it's I haven't picked up one of those yet, but I have a feeling that I'm going to have to. But I'm trying to keep this on a budget, guys. So right now I'm using the screen, and the screen is okay for general purposes, but in daylight it's not that great. Don't forget, this is like an 11-12-year-old camera, so keep that in mind. Probably the biggest technical issue you may find is that some of these cameras over the years have developed this lens error. And let me describe it a little bit more for you guys. What happens with the lens error is you turn the camera on, and when you turn the camera on, it gives you, well, it's not going to do it right now because it's working fine, but it'll give you an error message that blinks. Okay, so what that actually is, I don't actually know what causes it, but when that happens, you can't do anything with the camera. So I've read some stuff online, and one of the things that worked for me was when you turn the camera on, you keep your hand here. Eventually something happens, like, don't force it too much, but you give it a little force, something happens, and then the camera resets itself. But sometimes it takes a while before that actually works. Now this has happened to me twice, and the first time it happened to me was a few hours after playing with it. After I got it from the dealer, it happened. And then the next time it happened a few months later when I wasn't using the camera. So my theory is that it happens when the camera is left sitting for a while. Now I've read for some people that it was fatal. Maybe they just gave up on it, but for me it was not fatal. The second time it happened, it was a little harder to recover, and even when I was doing this trick, it wasn't really working. So, and I hate to tell you guys this again, but if you watch my last video, what I did was I gave it a good knock, and then it worked again. And it hasn't happened since, and that was about, I would say, about 8 months ago. So if you get one of these cameras, even if you don't use it regularly, try to fire it up every now and then, you know, maybe once a month at least. But this camera was meant to be used, and that's why I'm using it a lot more. So is this camera still worth it in today's world, in 2024, 2025 and beyond? In my personal opinion, what do you guys think I'm gonna say? Heck yeah! Heck yeah! Heck yeah, it's worth it. In my opinion, this camera can still rock it with the best of them as far as image quality is concerned. Okay, as I mentioned before, this camera is seriously making me think about selling the X100V because I simply prefer the images out of this camera. Alright, now is it for you? That's going to be up to you. Now for you guys who want a great travel camera that's going to take superb images of your trip, this is a great camera. This camera is for you. If I had any complaints about the styling, I would say that I kind of wish that the lens was a little bit smaller so that it could be actually pocketable, but in its state right now, it's not actually pocketable for jeans or anything like that. It's more like a coat, you know, like a long trench coat or a purse, you know, a man purse, things like that. It's fine for that, but it's not going to fit in your pant pocket unless you have, you know, really huge pockets and you want to stuff it in. But I wouldn't do that to this beautiful camera, to this beautiful lens. Okay, but the star of the show on this camera, guys, is really this superb Carl Zeiss lens. So if you guys are looking for this camera, yes, the prices are trending anywhere between $700 to $1,200. Usually it's going to cost a little bit more for the RX1R version, but sometimes you'll find it cheaper. So I'm just going to put that price trending range for both cameras because it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. All right, now there is another model which might even be better for you guys. It's the RX1R 2 with 42 megapixels. It's going to cost you roughly $2,000 and up. All right, now personally for me, I think 24 megapixels, it's fine, it's good enough for me. It's the sweet spot. I don't think I would pay that much more. I don't think I would pay you know, up to $2,000 for a camera of this vintage. I think for that money, your money is safer with one of today's cameras for that price. But if you can get this, especially at the lower end of the range, like 700 to 800, I think this is a fantastic deal. This is a fantastic camera that takes fantastic images. So I hope this was helpful to you guys, and I'd like to apologize to you guys for you know, for not coming out with these videos sooner. You know, I'm just gonna have to admit it, not only to you guys but to myself. I am just not a content creator. Okay, I love photography. I love taking pictures, so I'd like to think of myself as a photographer. I'm a camera enthusiast. I love cameras, lenses, photography. Big photography buff. Have tons of photography books. But as far as creating content, I'm just not good at it. I was doing all of this before YouTube. So if I had not been given the advice to try YouTube, then I would not have had a chance to share my story with you guys. And if my experiences with any of this stuff could help any of you, then to me it's well worth it, you know. But as far as creating content, you know, I'm always messing up. If a little word goes off here and there, I have to do it over again, and you know, it's draining mentally, physically. You don't get enough sleep, and I already am lacking sleep, so I'm just not a content creator. But I'll continue to do it for you guys if it helps. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate each and every one of you. And until the next camera legend, I'll catch you. And until the... All right, you guys, this is the last take, running out of space. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let's take that beautiful, fantastic 2013 timeless image of you guys with the Sony RX1R, perhaps the greatest compact camera ever made, because you guys are the greatest. At the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. And I will catch you guys next time on the cameralegend.com YouTube.